I am always going to think of it with my like rose-tinted glasses on, with my, you know, like irrational thoughts in my head, to the point where like me and Neil have just done 10 topics before we started this, and I'm like so wedded to the idea of keeping Harvey Elliott now as like a right wing option, particularly when Salah goes away to AFCON, and it's so irrational because the manager showed no willingness to play Harvey Elliott as a right winger last season, showed no sort of thing to play Elliott at any point really in any sort of meaningful minutes. So the idea that Salah goes away to an international tournament and then suddenly the manager's like, well, our starting right winger is Harvey Elliott. May I introduce you to him? Well, it feels like it is, that does feel like it is irrational, and the idea is far-fetched. But Liverpool have been rational around Darwin Núñez, been rational around a couple of other sales now. They're about to be around Costa Tsimikas, which I think we can all sort of, you know, shake hands on really, because it feels like you just don't need 3 left backs, and there's some, you know, money sat there that Liverpool can put back into their future purchases. So like I sort of don't know where I'm going with this in a sense. I guess like for me, every football club will feel like they're acting rationally, and I think we as fans will always feel irrational feelings around that. Is probably where I land on it.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know if it's easy to, it's impossible to take bias out of any of it, and I don't know whether we feel rational when they're making what we deem to be good decisions, because they're decisions that we want them to make. But I'd say around Isak, I would be actively encourage them to be irrational. Like I don't think that I'd be saying it's necessarily the right thing, but it's the thing I want them to do. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's where it's tricky, isn't it? Because the thing we'd probably always lean on, like whenever I'm having these conversations with friends, I'll just say like, it's not my money. So like I would obviously go and spend 150 million on Isak. I'd probably go and spend 50 million on Mark Gay, just to make sure that we have the options, because I've seen worlds where Liverpool have probably been, you know, a little bit too sort of erring on the side of caution, like beyond rational really, and how that's impacted seasons because of that. Like I'm now so worried, and this question has been floating around today about if you could have one defender or one attacker, which would you have? And I've seen a Liverpool season crumble because they've not had enough first team defenders, and they've certainly not had enough first team defenders who are you know, fit over the course of a whole season, and that's the scenario that Liverpool are about to find themselves in now. So I would be completely irrational if I was in charge of the purse strings at Liverpool. I imagine I'd be fired very quickly for those rational decisions.
But what a summer we'd have.
Yes.
Phil, I guess that's the point, is that the way that we choose to do business this summer in this window isn't how it's always been, because if you look at last summer with Chiesa, it was a gamble signing, obviously kind of a low stakes gamble, but it's not rational entirely. And in this era, under this ownership, there's been times where we have been both rational and irrational. So I don't know how you feel it's changed over time, or if it is literally just a season by season kind of shift.
I think what we're seeing is that it's sort of a couple of years into Klopp having no control, because I think he had a lot of control by the end in terms of what Liverpool were doing, sort of 16 to maybe 20 wasn't the same as 20 to 24, I don't think, in terms of he had more of a say. You saw when Edwards left and Julian Ward left, the sort of Núñez is a really good summary of that, I think, in terms of that. I don't think Núñez would have been signed in 2019 in exactly the same circumstances, just because he wouldn't have met the criteria that the other people wanted, and the other people are now back doing what they are. This is not necessarily a criticism of Klopp or anything. It's just the way it is. He was looking at things in a way that we're not looking at now. So the rationale is it's a different way of doing things, but I think it is more back to the way of probably like 2018, 2019 kind of time. I think Josh mentioned. Well, I think he touched on the centre-back thing in 2020 when Lovren went and we didn't replace him. Like, I'm pretty happy to say I think that was a Klopp decision, because I think he looked at it and thought, well, okay, I'm getting him next summer, and I'm actually quite happy with Fabinho against, like, at centre-back, and he went with it, and it just backfired in a horrible way. And to be fair, it backfired to such an extent that it almost didn't backfire, because I think that as soon as Joe Gomez got injured, after game 8 effectively, Van Dijk's already out, Joel Matip's gone. One centre-back isn't saving you there anyway, I don't think. So it wasn't a thing that made too much difference, but it was also a decision that might not have been made by other people if they had the same say as they do now. So in terms of rationality, it's possibly a bit more back to what we were, but it does change based on who is having the most input, and they all do have a say. Like Slot may be saying, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. And they're saying, maybe that's not the best idea. I think, Van Dijk talked about the wanting another attacker. I think that's a perfectly valid thing. I think they will do one. I don't know if necessarily if it will be Isaac, but I think they will get someone in, and I think they will do a defender as well. I think yesterday when Konate goes down, he only had something in his eye, didn't he? But at the same time, you're a bit like, this is a bit of a problem. And when he says like, "Oh, there's loads of players that can play there," it does not feel like it's a case of I'm just keeping my cards close to my chest. Because ultimately, if you say yes, we desperately need a centre back, Crystal Palace, for example, looking at Mark Gay and going, "Well, that's another £5 million."
Yeah.
Whereas you can play a bit more hardball if they think that it's all a bluff, isn't it? And they can probably work out it's a bluff, but at the same time, they can probably go, maybe it isn't, and.
They can look at 2020. Liverpool are prepared to do
exactly.
this.
So everything's a game, and I mean, ultimately, you hear people talking, and I sort of like get slightly not annoyed, but I find it a bit mad when people take everything that comes out of a manager's mouth or player's mouth at absolute face value and assume that is exactly what. Like some of the stuff coming out of Newcastle in the last couple of weeks, and the Newcastle fans going, see, he's not for sale. It's like I don't think that's necessarily how this all works. They're telling you what they want you to think, not what is actually going on. And we can't really judge transfer windows properly until they've closed, I don't think.
I hope you're enjoying this free show at the moment. Loads of excellent, exciting stuff on the Anfield app. If you want to be part of the whole thing, you can download the Anfield app and go from there. Or you can subscribe via the YouTube membership as well for video-only content and other bits and pieces. We love doing these shows. We love that you watch them. So come, be part of the journey with us.